What's up, people? I am
that Hotep Jesus dude. That Hotep Jesus dude.
Hotep.
Hotep to the fam. Hotep to the fam. Hope everyone's doing very well tonight. Appreciate you for joining me for this late night session. Actually, I don't even need this. Oh man. What a day. What a day. What a day. What a day. Really quick, while we wait for some people to come in, I'd just like to say Hotep Nation is on a mission to which actually has a lot to do with today, but we're pushing for homeschooling. If you go to hotepnation.com or hotepnation.com/donate, you can contribute to our mission to support homeschoolers across the nation, United States of America. Shout out to Dawn Hotep. She has a meeting set up with some homeschoolers this week. We're going to link up with them and see how we can support them and some of the work that they do. So I look forward to that. menofwater.com, of course. Make sure y'all go check out Men of Water. Moonboy asks, how do I become Hotep? Well, that's quite simple. Go to hotepnation.com. All the information is right there. And you could mosey your way on in via that location. So tonight we're talking about what everybody's been talking about. But I have a bit of a different take than what you may have seen today. Much of what you've seen today has been quite banal and ubiquitous at the same time. So I'm coming with a different take. If you want a more comedic, entertaining take, me and Uncle Hotep, we have a secret show we do every Monday. Patreon.com/Hotep's Been Told You. It's basically Hotep's Been Told You light. It's a shortened version of the show, but we show videos and clips around the internet. We talk about them, and we talked about that tonight. So if you want my take on the actual events between Chris Rock and Will Smith, go sign up there, and you can get the takes. But today we're not going to be talking about that. We'll be talking about the events, but instead of talking about the actual event, we're going to talk about you. We're talking about you, the people. That's right. So first, let's start here. Let's start off with content creators. I am a content creator, and content creators are beholden to their viewers. We work for you. That's why super chats are important. That's why Cash App is important. It lets us know we're doing a good job and you support us and we're able to bring you great content. But there's a feedback loop that's created. For example, this is a very hot topic. Now, I had no plans of streaming tonight. I didn't have anything to stream about. But this topic is so hot that it's almost counterintuitive not to have it on your channel. I mean, everybody streamed about this today. For me not to stream about this today would be a bad business decision. I have to have the SEO benefits that come along with that on my channel. I have to talk about it. People want to hear about this topic. It's been the number one trending topic all day since last night, blah, 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 blah. So people had to cover it. I mean, think about the amount of people who have grifted off this topic today, not only through tweets, Instagrams, snaps, TikToks, tweets, you name it. Everybody has been grifting off this topic today. And it's because, like I said, you kind of have to. That's when you see something getting so much attention, you actually have to grift off the clicks. You got to. It just doesn't make sense not to. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I didn't want to give the same type of takes where people are talking about, oh, is he cucked? Is he this? Was he protecting his wife, and was he a simp, and all this like small brain shit, right? Because that's what this topic is. It's a small brain topic. It's for commoners. It's for regular folk. It's for lower class people. This isn't something that an intellectual people would talk about. This is something you'd laugh about, maybe discuss for a few moments, and then the next hour of your life, it's gone and you kind of move on. Today, I woke up, I checked my Twitter. I was running a sale. I run sales on Mondays on my Book Dominate Twitter. And I saw the timeline. And the timeline was talking about Will Smith. And I got my couple of tweets off last night. I wasn't going to spend all day today talking about somebody smacking somebody else because it's just not that important in my life. So I didn't spend time on Twitter at all today. I ran my sale. I focused on my business and providing people value in exchange for currency, and kept it moving. I spent the day with my daughter. I watched some chess tournaments. I played some chess. I studied some chess. Streamed some chess earlier tonight, and that was it. But when I saw the timeline, like talking about Will Smith, it was just like, all right, there's no point of being on social media today because, well, I really don't care that much. And the truth of the matter is people generally shouldn't care that much. Now, there's probably two groups. There's people who don't care and people who are grifting off the topic. And a lot of people are just tweeting for the engagement, right? Oh, I got this funny meme, and I'm totally here for that. Get your jokes off and all that shit. Get your engagement. Totally here for that. It's a fun, lighthearted situation. Go ahead, do that. But outside of that, it's just like I saw people were invested in this topic. And that's why I was like, y'all really invested in this Hollywood stuff? Y'all really invested in Will Smith and Chris Rock, and you have these opinions that you really feel adamant about? And I'm just like, y'all shouldn't care that much. Y'all arguing with strangers about other strangers. Like Chris Rock and Will Smith, they don't even care about you. They're not thinking about you. It's just a waste of time, right? So let's go back to all right, so this topic obviously is low-hanging fruit, so people have to cover it, people have to talk about it. I opened up my YouTube and everybody's streaming about it today, and I only watched one stream. I watched Six Goddess stream because I really wanted to hear a black woman's take on this and see what she got to say, and she had a very interesting stream. I might have popped in and out of others for a few moments before. I was like today I watched a little bit of Legal Mindsets. I call 5 minutes of his because I was setting up my stream for chess, and so his was sitting there and I clicked on it, support the homie. But I just, I was invited to a stream today to talk about this, and they were like, hey, anybody want to come on, talk about this in our group chat? And I'm just like, I really don't want to go on the internet and talk about Jada Smith. That's just not what I want to do with my time. So no, I'm not going to join your stream. Get yours off, totally, get your grift on. But it just wasn't how I wanted to spend my day, right? I'm like, I could be doing something more constructive than talking about Will and Jada Smith. And I think that family's gone through enough that they don't need everybody fucking talking about their business. It's kind of corny and whack to me. So that's the low hanging fruit, right? So then let's talk about feedback loops, right? So we live in a time where our rights are being threatened. We live in a time where big tech is controlling our lives. Controlling what we see. Live in a time where the financial system isn't working in our favor. The economy is being manipulated by socialist mechanisms. We live in a time where people are told to believe that we need to go to war against Russia. We live in a time that has many distractions. Many distractions, and we don't have much time left. Like the more time we waste, and that's like really why like I've been on my grind, because it's just like as I've gotten older, I don't see a lot of time left. All I see is time I've wasted, and in time I wish I could have back. So instead of, you know, creating more of that regret of time wasted, I'm like, let me just like super grind now, because I wasted so much time in my youth that I wish I can get back. You know, like the other day I was reading and I'm just like, man, I wish I started this type of studying when I was younger. And I did study. I did read a lot of books when I was younger. You know, I walk around, you know, like 4 or 5 books on me. This was after school. Like I was just always educating myself, but I just wish I would have went harder, you know, in hindsight. Chalamoyan said we got an Oscar metaphor for the Russia versus blue and yellow conflict. Choose your side or die. Shout out to Chad. So yeah, so I just look at it at a time where it's just like we don't have much time, and we got to focus our time and our intentions, and we can't be distracted. But what I saw today was it's like, okay, it's fine for people to talk about this subject and get their comments off, but it was how heavy it was, and how long and lengthy. Like it was an all day thing, and it was just everywhere. And it's just like, when you want to study a group of people, study their conversations. If you want to study a tribe of people, study their conversations. What do they talk about? 80-20 rule. What are the things that they talk about most? And that'll tell you everything that you need to know about those people. And what I saw today was a group of people who can carry on a conversation about things that don't matter in their lives, but they carry this conversation heavily and lengthily, if that's even a word. But they carry this conversation all day long. And, you know, if we were to talk about monetary policy, right? Like, where would everybody be? Right? Where would everybody be? If we were to talk about economics, where would everybody be? If we were to talk about case law, where would everybody be? You just wouldn't have those conversations. So when people say that they're oppressed by government, well, you teach your government how to treat you by the things you talk about, right? And so that's going back to like what I was saying with feedback loops. Like, so the way this system works is at the very top, you have your oligarchs. Below your oligarchs, you have your donor class. That's like the Bill Gates of the world, and the Robert Mercers. And then below that, you have your media. And then below that, you have your politicians. And below that, you have your grifter or influencer class / intelligentsia. Sometimes those two, you could probably put intelligentsia above it, but nowadays it's like intelligentsia are grifters and grifters are the intelligentsia, because that's where people get their takes from. They get their takes from the grifters, and everybody's a content creator today. So, and then you have underneath that, then you have your hoi polloi, you have your rank and file, right? So really, like everybody above the rank and file is taught by the rank and file. And yeah, they manipulate the rank and file, but ultimately the power resides with the rank and file, because all this stuff revolves around attention. And the moment that the rank and file decides that they don't want to feed their attention to BS anymore, then they would get something different. For example, if it were a restaurant and the restaurant was serving fish and the restaurant was serving steak, but everybody came in and everybody ordered fish and nobody ordered steak, well, the restaurant would probably remove steak from the menu, or they just wouldn't order as much stock of the steak, right? And vice versa. If the same thing happened, if everybody came in for steak and nobody ordered fish, they might take it off the menu. So the customers teach the restaurant how to stock. Now the same thing goes with content. The customers tell media how to stock their content. So when a media outlet sees the amount of people that talk about celebrity drama, well, they go, well, this is going to make dollars, so this is what we're going to put on the menu, because this is what people are consuming. This is what people are intellectually eating. And that's why you have an intelligentsia that really doesn't talk about intellectual matters, because you've taught them based upon feedback loops that you'll pay them more with your attention, which they turn into dollars, that you'll pay them more if they talk about things that don't matter in your life. So in my past, I had a media outlet, I had a blog, and we blogged about, shout out to Vonnie Media Mogul, he helped run that with me, and we used to do entertainment news. And it was a very lucrative business. In fact, that's how I got my gig working alongside Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. So it came a point where I had like this spiritual awakening, and I didn't want to feed people entertainment news anymore. Now, in hindsight, it was a bad business decision because I had a website doing millions of hits, and I'd probably be a millionaire right now if I still had to say. But my morals took a front seat, and I said, I'm going to destroy it. And I destroyed the project. I completely abandoned the project. I didn't even sell it to somebody else. I just abandoned it completely. And it just disappeared into oblivion because I didn't want to feed people entertainment news. I wanted to give people substance. So today we have menoforder.com, and it's a website that has substance. You know, we're able to, so I'm proud of menoforder.com because we don't give people BS content. We give them substance, something that can actually make these people better, something that can help people. Like, that's what I'm interested in. So if I have to take a pay cut to help make people better, I'll take a pay cut because it helps me sleep at night. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I knew I came on the internet grifting off of topics that I didn't believe in. I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Now, would my pockets be better? Yeah, but I'd be very unhappy. And that's why they say money isn't everything, and money can't buy you happiness. It just can't, and it can't buy me happiness. I'd rather find a medium where I give people good content and I'm rewarded for that monetarily, even though it may not be as much as somebody who just complains about every single topic that comes across the internet. That's just me, right? Like, that's the way I was born. That's the way I was built. And that's what I want to feed people. I'm not a victim of the feedback loop, but I am, right? So I'm a victim of the feedback loop because here I am talking about the Will Smith and Chris Rock situation. So the feedback loop says, Hotep, you got to talk about this. But me says, all right, I'll talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it. As you notice, I haven't talked about the Chris Rock and Will Smith situation. We did that on our show, patreon.com/Hotep's Been Told You. We did that tonight, me and Uncle Hotep. Very comedic tape and fun. Uncle Hotep went off. But I'll do that there because that's what we do. Shout out to Khaled Cooper. Appreciate you, bro. Make sure y'all follow Khaled Cooper on Instagram. He's a super beast, straight up Superman. Love the workouts, bro. And can't wait to have you as a part of Men of Order as well. So I'm a victim of the feedback loop, but I'm not going to sit up here and tap dance and entertain for clicks, right? Like, I'm just not going to do that. Like, that's whack to me, right? Like, to sit up here and say, oh, well, Chris Rock did this and Will Smith shouldn't have did that. And I can't give you that content. Like, you've gotten that all day. Like, that's not what I do. That's not the Hotep Jesus brand. Like, if you want like fun takes, come Hotep's Been Told You every Thursday, 8 p.m. We go wild. We have a good time. It's more relaxed. But when I'm me by myself, We deal in intellectualism on this channel. And I'm not about to sit up here and fucking talk to y'all about some shit that doesn't matter. Okay, Chris Rock smacked him. Okay, some dude was banging Will's girl. Okay, like, do y'all look at the country we're in right now and y'all worried about one couple out of the millions of people we have in this country? And y'all worried about one little couple? It's just weird to me. It's really weird that people are so invested in these topics. So the feedback loop, right? So I broke down to you the rungs of, from the oligarch to the rank and file. And so the feedback loop, like I told you, you teach the content creators what to put on the menu by what you react to. So, for example, I might put out a piece of content, like, for example, when Joe Rogan said the N-word. I discussed that, but I really want to discuss it because I know Joe Rogan. I was on his show. I like Joe Rogan, so I discussed it. But I knew going in that would probably be the most clicks I'd get on my channel. Now, I do other videos on like monetary policy, the history of banking in the United States, and war and corruption, and those just don't get the same amount of hits. And I know that because, well, it's intellectual, and Americans just aren't an intellectual people. So I'm dealing with a very small cohort of people, but I'm fine with that because I'd rather build with a small group of people who are very strong than a large group of people who are very weak. Bilderberg Boy says, you're correct. The lower end of society are considered bottom feeders by the social engineers. Most observe society through an elementary lens. Yeah, exactly. So the feedback loop, right? Like the feedback loop is something you're in charge of. And you would know more. Well, here's what it really comes down to. It comes down to lack of organization. Let me write this down because I have to write this. I have a new book I'm working on. And I'll have to break that down. So it comes down to lack of organization. Now, what I know is that usually when people organize, what should I call them? The conspirators do their best to discredit them. For example, the black community was organizing. I guess you can call it like black nationalism. So let's talk about that, right? So two things happened. You have two groups of people that were reacting to this black nationalist school of thought. You have the red whites and you got your blue whites, and you got your red blacks and you got your blue blacks, which is the right and the left, Republicans and Democrats, right? So the red whites would view black nationalists as something negative. Here are these people who say they are, black nationalists, they're evil, they hate white people, and, all this other stuff. But really what happens is the media and select personalities, they take like the outliers of this group, the really bad examples, and then they put them on TV. They do this to the red whites. They do this to Republicans. They take the really bad examples and then they put those people on TV. They take the like really ignorant conservatives and put them on TV and say they represent the whole group. So then the red whites have this negative perception of black nationalism. Then you have your blue whites. And the blue whites created this pejorative. They took or they trained, or the black feminists trained others to be against Hotep. And that's why you Google Hotep and it's just invective article after invective article, right? It's quite offensive. So like think about this. This is a community who in the 90s was very Hotep, right? You can go look at individuals like Queen Latifah. This is when hip hop was Hotep. Then hip hop became commercial, and then it just went left, and now it's all about shaking your ass, doing drugs, and shooting up people, right? But it was a time where hip hop was very Hotep, very holistic, very black nationalist, a lot full of love. Um, and then it became unpopular to be that. Well, who made it unpopular to be a wholesome group of people? So again, this goes back to organization. Right? The conspirators, when they see people organizing and the black community was starting to organize, they had to destroy this organization, and they used hip hop as a means to destroy that organization. And then later on, black feminism to destroy that organization. So now when you mention Hotep, black people don't even want to touch it, especially online. There's a large contingent of black people that don't want to touch it because, well, the white progressive has taught them that no, you should not want to organize with your people unless it is in a manner which aligns with progressive values and not conservative, because as we know, Hoteps have very conservative leanings. And the progressive says, no, do not organize under a conservative manner, organize under a progressive manner, which means the difference between don't build your own, come be a part of my system where you'll always be number two. So the conspirators, they hate organization. So that's the problem, right? The conspirators will always attack organization. They can attack Hotep, but we're not going anywhere. So why am I saying all this about organization? Well, when it comes to feedback loops and teaching the content creators what you want to hear about, you would need to first organize the people and say, look, here's what we expect from our content creators. And if they don't give us this type of content, we're going to disconnect from them and put them out of business. And then your content creators would now have to actually educate. They might have to actually read a book. These days, content creators don't actually have to read a book. All they have to do is give you some emotional reaction to some event on TV, and the clicks and the dollars come rolling through. But if you organized your schools of thought and said, we're not clicking on this, give us something to chew on, give us some substance, you would find that the content creators would have to become more intellectual. Some would either make or break it. Some may resort to OnlyFans or some other means of creating money because they might be too lazy to read some books, to actually do some real studying, to actually be intelligent about topics. But they don't really give you anything, right? They just give you some emotional reaction. And you eat it up. You like it because, well, humans are emotional beings, but it doesn't make you much different from the left because the left likes to operate off of emotions and sensationalism. I'm gonna get to the super chats in a second. So that's the feedback loop, right? So when you tell these content creators via your clicks, right? So your video on Will Smith and Chris Rock does 10,000 hits, but the rest of your other content was doing 5,000 hits. You might start saying, how about I just cover celebrity drama because, well, it gets the clicks and I have to support my family. I have to make money and I don't have time for anything else. So again, like Kanye said, freedom's a choice. And part of being free is being knowledgeable and being intellectual and knowing what's going on with your government and knowing what's going on with your economy. And most people don't know, right? Like, that's why I wrote my book, The Patriot Report, because I looked around and I noticed people don't know these things. So I was like, well, let me give it to them, right? Let me point them. You know, I've cited all my sources. I have like over 200 citations in the book. So I cited my sources so that you could take the studies even further and read the books that I've read. You know, the Rothbards, the Mises, Carol Quigley, et cetera, Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. But they're very big books, and that's why I distilled it down to, maybe 200 something pages. But the problem is, like Kanye said, slavery is a choice. And as long as you're acting in a capacity that is not intellectual, you will always be a slave. Like, think about what the slave master did for the slave. And it's happening today. Well, in the Deep South, the master would not allow the slave to read books. He forbade it. It was foreboding. Because he understood that a thinking individual could never be enslaved. He would eventually require freedom. So the master today doesn't ban books, just makes it unpopular. He's even used Hollywood to shame people. People who read books are nerds and geeks. And then that trickles down into some sort of like bullying situation. And then so people are like, oh, it's better to be cool and dress cool and be cool and all this other weird stuff. Where I don't know, I've always had that balance where it was just like, I'm not about to look like a geek. I'm gonna be fly, but I'm gonna be smart too. Like I always been fly, right? But I always been smart too. And I think it's important to have a balance between the two. You should care about the way you look, but it should not take precedence over the way you think. But anyway, people through the media has been shamed out of becoming intellectual and out of becoming nerds and geeks. But I pride myself in being a nerd and being a geek. I think it's very important. And it's very important to reiterate that to the youth, because that's where the power comes from. You look at our lives. We're complaining about big tech. Well, big tech, these are the geeks that you made fun of in high school. They run your life right now. So how is it that, you think that anything other than intellectualism is important? I mean, the difference between the human being and the rest of the animal kingdom is because of the brain. That's it. The difference between us and apes and monkeys is the brain. It's the difference. The rest of the animal kingdom, yes, opposable thumbs, etc., but it's the brain essentially. I said this before. I said, if octopus didn't have, or octopi, if octopi didn't have such short lifespans, they'd probably rule the earth. I don't know about y'all, but I'm very fascinated by octopi, and I watch documentaries. I used to watch documentaries on them and whatnot, and they're just really fast learning creatures. But anyway, so the master bans reading from the plantation. So the conspirators today, they don't ban reading. They just make it uncool, right? They also distract us so we don't have time to read, right? Like, how would you have time to read when you were so invested in Will, Jada, and Chris Rock today? I had time to read because I turned my phone off. I shut down Twitter. I looked at my phone. I ran my sale on my book, handled my business. I saw everybody talking about Will Smith, and I was like, oh, people are going to be talking about this all day. Very, very boring. I'll see y'all later. I'll come back to promote my book again. Just wasn't interested in it. And I don't think it should have had the amount of conversation it did. If people want to talk about it, fine. But the amount of conversation that this conversation had, it tells you everything you need to know about the American people and why we're a joke to the rest of the world. Chad Lemoyne said, this is why you're the best. I found you via Starbucks video, but I stuck around and supported because of your perspective and motivation. Hotep. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate you, bro. Renee Calusia, he said, Will Smith is a flat earther and a great husband. So the feedback loop, right? This is the point I'm really trying to make here as I extrapolate my thoughts. You have the power. The people have the power. And the power lies in the attention. It's two types of currency in this world. You have attention and you have money. Those are the two currencies. And that's really what you need to conserve. Now, your attention is basically time, right? Like, how do you spend? There's that word spend, just like you spend money, you spend time. So how do you spend your time versus how do you spend your money? Now, how you spend your time is often more valuable than how you spend your money. So how do you spend your time? What did you spend your time on today? How did you allocate your minutes? I talk about this a lot on my email list, briansharp.co. On my email list, I send a daily newsletter out. But I harp on this a lot. Like, how do you spend your time? What do you carve out in your day to do? You know, for example, I started learning Spanish sometime last year, maybe late last year. I kind of got serious about it. And I was speaking to this one individual and I said, hey, you should learn this language. You should hop on this app and learn this language with me. And this individual said to me, they said, I don't have time. And I know what that means. When somebody says they don't have time for something, it means they don't have the ambition or the desire to make time for something. But that individual now is learning a language with me because they made time. They realized that, no, there are some minutes within my day where I'm bullshitting on Facebook. There are some minutes in my day where I'm bullshitting on Instagram. And those minutes can be pulled away from the conspirators who run these platforms and bring them to yourself. Because when you spend time, you are either spending it with somebody else, spending it on somebody else, or you're spending it with or on yourself. So when I see people spending time on the Will Smith situation, for example, my first tweet last night about the Will Smith situation, I tweeted, then like 1 million people responded to me, and I just immediately muted the tweet. I'm like, I'm not about to sit up here and argue with y'all over some shit I really don't care about. This shit's just a tweet. I don't even know why y'all be arguing with people on Twitter. It's kind of really fucking weird that, like, for example, you see a tweet on the internet that you disagree with. And for some reason, your ego has told you that you have to be the one to voice your opinion under this person's tweet. So I said earlier today, I said, before you argue with somebody on Twitter, ask yourself, what's the ROI on this tweet? That's what I do. Before I respond to something, because I get those inclinations to sometimes respond to people, but I stop myself and I ask, what's the risk versus reward on this? What's the ROI on me responding to this person? If I look at it and I go, after I respond to a person, I'm really not going to get anything out of this, then it's probably a waste of my time to respond. And that's how people need to operate. I find it really weird. And not to say I'm perfect, because I used to argue with people on Twitter all the time, especially in the early days of Twitter. I used to stay arguing with people. But now that I'm older and wiser, I'm looking back and I'm like, that shit's really weird behavior. And I think what it is it's the id, right? Like, Jung talks about the id, right? And the id is the ego. And it's the ego that feels entitled. It is the ego that says, my opinion should matter to somebody else. Your opinion doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have to mean anything to anyone. It's only you that believes that expressing your opinion is important. So somebody tweets something and you got to go under their tweet and you got to respond to it because you think your tweet is important. You think your opinion is important. When I have opinions on things, I write books. That's what I do. I go, oh, I had an idea, I had a thought. And then I take a note and it becomes a chapter in my book. Or if I have an idea that I want to expound upon, I have a daily email newsletter and I'll just extrapolate in my email newsletter. My ideas become a part of my business. People take their best thoughts and waste them on tweets. So now you arguing with somebody who doesn't matter, who's not going to make you any money, who's not going to make you or your family any happier. Then they report you to Twitter and now your account's banned because you felt that you had to express your opinion. You thought your opinion was important, but Again, the risk versus reward. Where was the reward versus risk on that? The ego has this idea of self-importance. Thinking about an individual in the vastness of the multiverses, right? Because we live in a universe and there's a theory that there are other universes. So an individual in the vastness of multiverses is quite insignificant. You don't matter. In the grand scheme of life across all universes, you don't matter. It is only you and your mind that believe you matter. The fact that you matter is a construction of your ego. Your ego tells you you matter, right? You don't matter. You are matter in a scientific term, but you don't matter. I don't matter. All this shit could just disintegrate like that, and nobody will remember a thing. A meteor will hit this planet one day, the entire human species will be eradicated, and no one in any universe will even know we were here. So why is it you think your opinion needs to be expressed to some stranger on Twitter? It's just really fucking weird. The ego installs this idea of self-importance. But again, what's the ROI once you have this self-importance? What's the ROI on that? On a tweet? What's the ROI for a tweet? That's what you need to ask yourself. What's the ROI on a tweet? What's the return on investment for a tweet? But see, people have no concept of consciousness and ego. People have no concept of consciousness, unconsciousness, or subconsciousness, and ego, or ego being the personality, or the personality is an expression of the ego. So if you have no consciousness of a thing, how can you control said thing? And this is the problem. And this is the problem. People have no consciousness. I spoke about this on menoforder.com. I wrote a blog on it. Are you conscious of yourself? When you find a flaw within your personality, how do you react when you spot that flaw? Do you say, this is how I am and this is how I'm always going to be, which is the egoic response? Or do you say, this is a flaw in my personality and one day I would like to conquer it? One day I would like to not be this way and I'm going to work towards that. I do it all the time. I'm a content creator and every time I watch myself on the internet, I cringe. I cringe at how I talked last year. And last year I cringed at how I talked the year before. And next year I'm going to cringe maybe about this video and how I spoke. But every year I know I get better because I'm always auditing myself and my speech. And I'm saying, don't do this, don't do that. Don't react to people this way. For example, I have a bad habit of expecting the best from people. And when they don't give me the best version of themselves, I have a bad habit of lashing out at them. Sometimes people say things in the chat that are like, I believe to be quite idiotic, and I lash out at them. And I notice that and I go, I have to stop doing that because that's my ego saying that my opinion is more important than theirs. But again, my opinion does not matter. And this person might not be where I am today, but I have to learn to be more patient with people. That's something I have to work on with my ego. How I present information sometimes is too caustic, so it's not palpable for enough people. And this is something people have complained about in the past about me. My message is too caustic, it's too abrasive, it's too attacking. And they're right. Sometimes it is. And in the past I said, well, that's just how I do my thing. And I was like that for a really long time. But when you become wiser, you become better. So I said, no, I want to be the best version of me. I don't want to be the egoic version of me. The egoic version of me should only play a part when it's time to make people smile. The egoic version of me should only take part when it's time to make people smile. So that's where I'm at mentally. Hold on one second. Let me read some super chats here. Saxis, $50 super chat. Hey! Appreciate you, man. That's a big boy super chat. I appreciate you, yo. This is the stuff that's gonna make this channel be big one day. K Dub from the future, thank you. He says having unorthodox takes is a feature and nowadays a responsibility. I find it too easy to see people discussing what opinions assigned to them. Not because I'm smarter than you. I was raised not to be afraid to be skeptical. Same here. My dad, military guy, raised me to be skeptical. Always been a contrarian, always been a rebel. I'm the rebel of the family. Dax Hill, he said, using all 240 characters, revising and deleting the drafted tweet is the first step on the path to enlightenment. Yes, delete that tweet. Correct. Shout out to Dax Hill, one of the eminent writers over at menoforder.com. Make sure y'all check out his articles. Darion Gario, appreciate you. Big boy super chat. He said, Hotep and read scrolls. Yes. I read really old books. That's what I enjoy doing. I got a couple of books right here. I'm actually not going to read tonight. I got to watch, I got to catch up on some chess tournaments. But sometimes what happens is insomnia set in. I'll watch like a chess tournament recap. Because I think Magnus won today, and I know Hikaru won today, and I got to recap Hikaru's match because I fell asleep earlier watching the match. But if I have insomnia set in, I might finish this Rothschild's book, or I might finish Safe's Dean book. I don't know. But yeah, you got to Hotep and read scrolls, and I'm gonna get into some Mises too. And I got a book on Mao I gotta finish, man. I don't even know. Oh, it's right there. I gotta finish this Mao book too. I've been bullshitting on that one. Dr. West said Chris Rock's new comedy tour is named Ego Death. Wow, interesting. I didn't know that. So it's not. I'm not really a fan of the term ego death. I get what people are saying with that, but I don't intend to kill the ego, because the ego is very, very important. The ego helps us interpret this world and helps us relate to people. It's very much a social aspect of us. So I don't intend to kill it. I just intend to water the life nurturing aspects of it and take away light from the darker aspects of the ego, if that makes sense. So let's dive into intellectual capacity, right? This is the final thought I have here on my speech today. So intellectual capacity. What is one's intellectual capacity and how do you measure that? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. All I know is that I have a certain intellectual capacity, and the smarter I get, the more I have a desire to be smarter. And frankly, I don't consider myself to be that smart, because in order to consider yourself to be smart, you'd have to compare it to something, because everything in this world is relative, right? Because to an astrophysicist, I'm dumb, right? So everything is relative. So if I say I'm smart, who am I comparing myself to? But truthfully, I'm comparing myself to the people who spend all day on Twitter and the internet, talking about Chris Rock and Will Smith, slapping them. That's not a very good measuring stick. If I'm measuring myself against that, I failed. So now I have to measure myself against intellectuals. And when I measure myself against intellectuals, I say to myself, I have a lot of work to do. So I'm smarter than the average bear, but I still have a lot of studying to do. And I have a lot of catching up to do when compared to some of the intellectuals that I admire in this world, like Thomas Sowell, like Dr. Kaba Kamene, like Shaka Akmos, like Dr. Henry Clark, Dr. Ben. There's a lot of intellectuals, Francis Cress Wilson. There's a lot of intellectuals in this world that I aspire to be better than. I aspire to be better than Dr. E. Williams. I aspire to be better than Thomas Sowell. I aspire to be better than Ludwig von Mises. I aspire to be better than Murray Rothbard. And I don't do that because I want to diminish their legacy. And I don't do that because of some egoic issue. I'm doing that because it's a competitive drive that fuels my studies. It gives me a benchmark and says, if you haven't reached this level, then you haven't reached the milestone in which you'd like to achieve. So if I haven't reached the milestone of Thomas Sowell, then I know I still have work to do. And it's a way to actually keep your ego in check, because trying to catch up to Thomas Sowell is pretty much an impossible feat. I mean, the man's written who sits down and writes a book like this? Like, just how it's like 600 pages. Now I know how he did it. He has research assistants, right? So I have to get to the point where I'm an intellectual and I'm so influential and I have a good economic base where I can have researchers do my research for me. And then I can take their research, tell them what I need them to look up, and then I can write 600-page volumes. But until then, I cannot even compare myself. But it gives me a point in which to reach for. Right. So what it does is it keeps my ego in check, because if I were to compare myself to people who talk about Chris Rock and Will Smith all day, I could become complacent because I'm smarter than them. I'm more intellectual than them. I'm more informed than them. I'm more well-read and more well-written than them. Right. For example, if you were to compare me to the average person, they don't read. I actually write books. I'm like levels beyond what they could even. Most people can't even sit down and read a book, let alone write one. And I've written 3, and I'm working on 4 and 5 right now. But if I compare myself to average people, I could become complacent. But if I compare myself to Thomas Sowell, I'm like, yeah, I still got a lot more writing to do. My best writing is still in front of me. David Zientara, Thomas Sowell's 91 and writes 600-page books in his sleep. Yeah, exactly. Right. So like, that's what I'm attaining. That's what I'm looking at. Like, how can I reach that level? But if I compare myself to intellectualism, this is what I want for other people. I want for other people to aspire to be intellectual. Joshua said, which has a better ROI, philosophy or economics? I'm going to say economics, just like straight off the top of the head. I'm going to just say economics. However, there's a strong amount. If you have economics without philosophy, you could become a socialist. Right? Like economics kind of relies on philosophy. Right? So in fact, maybe philosophy comes before economics, right? But this is a good one. This is a good question. All right, so let's break it down like this. At a very basic level, human beings rely on economics to survive. You must understand economics at a very basic level, the exchange of scarce goods and resources. You have to understand this thing, right? However, if you don't have a strong philosophy, your economics could be stripped from you, right? So let's talk about this. Does your philosophy say freedom and ultimate freedom without the interference of some centralized authority? Then you might be considered an anarchist or a libertarian or a centrist, right? or somebody with common sense. Now, if you had that philosophy that you wanted ultimate freedom without government interference, then you could never choose socialism as an economic stance. Now, if you said something like, well, if I don't get jabbed, then I'm risking somebody else's life, then that's your philosophy, and you might agree with socialist economics where, you need to subsidize somebody else's life. The problem with that is you believe that others should be forced to subsidize other people's lives. Now, if I believe everyone needs to be an individual and everyone needs to be free, and you believe that you should impose your philosophy on me and I should subsidize other people's lives, now we have war. Now we have conflict, and that's where we're at today. So it is very important for an individual to understand philosophy, but I think people need to understand their philosophy as it relates to economics. So it's sort of like a double-edged sword. You have to know your economic philosophy, if that makes sense. Derek Lolis, he said, started to listen to Renegade History and have to applaud you for the recommendation. Definitely gave me some insight that challenged my beliefs. Dope. Yeah, that's a really good read, bro. Really, really awesome read. Great research. Like, there's another intellectual. Like, I write books and I research, but like Dad took his research to another level. Like, he actually got up, got on a plane, went and interviewed ex-slaves. I haven't taken my research to that level. Like, he's interviewed slaves to write his book. I'm just going off of research. They're primary sources, but I'm just going off of research. Like, I get a book, I read the book, and then I translate what I read. He's taking it to a whole nother level. He's got like primary resources. So like, these are the things like I aspire to, right? Like in becoming an intellectual. So intellectualism, right? So again, the human being is different from the rest of the animals on the planet outside of the opposable thumb argument because of our brains. Yet we don't use our brains. Yet we don't exercise our brains. Mondays and Wednesdays and Sundays, I type this into my chat. I say, it's time to train your brain with International Master Alejandro Moreno. That's my chess coach. And he loves that tweet because it says train your brain. And what he does is he actually challenges his students, which is crazy because he's made me be able to do things I didn't think were possible. And I remember the first time we did it, we were in Miami. I was sitting in his chess classroom and we were sitting at the chessboard and we were doing mate and two puzzles. And this is mate and two that I was barely getting looking at the pieces. And the man tells me, all right, you're going to do this puzzle right now, but you're going to do it with no pieces. And I'm looking at him like, bro, I can barely do it looking at the pieces. And now you want me to do it without looking at the pieces? But me being the person I am, I go, I'm always up for a challenge. Like, I just love a good challenge. That's why I play chess, because it's just the hardest thing to ever learn. So I sit there and I'm looking at the board, doing this chess problem in my head. And all of a sudden my brain cracks. Like, I didn't feel it physically. I felt it like etherically, but I felt my brain like expand, like just expanded. And then I saw the puzzle. I solved it. And I picked my head up and I was like, yo, rook B2 or something like that. And they were like, yo, Hotep, you got it. And I'm like, oh shit. I remember being somebody who watched other chess players on TV play chess blindfold. They were playing simultaneously playing 20 people. Like, Magnus played 20 masters simultaneously blindfolded, right? Like, I remember seeing this young Chinese girl do it. Now I'm at a point where coach says, all right, I'm going to tell you the moves on the chessboard. You have to close your eyes, you have to visualize the moves and then find mate. And 13 moves in, you got to find mate. It's now at the point where I do mate in 2 puzzles or mate in 3 puzzles, and I do them. I have to do them blindfolded because now looking at the pieces, is stopping me from being able to visualize the moves. So when I want to visualize a move, I close my eyes and I see the pieces move in my head, something I wasn't able to do before. What's the point of all this is what I'm saying. The point of all this is what I'm saying is a human being who doesn't challenge its mind is a dead human being. And dead human beings are slaves. Again, the master told the slave, you're not allowed to read books. You're not allowed to be smart because he knew an intellectual person could never be enslaved. This is why you can't fool me, because I educate myself too much. I could never be a slave because I educate myself too much. This is why I was able to escape corporate America, because I educated myself out of corporate America. I became too smart for corporate America. I remember I'd walk into, like one time, the last job I really had, I was sitting there talking to the founder of the company, and I asked him a question, and none of the employees in the room even understood the question. And he goes, yeah, that was an investor related question that Brian just asked. And he didn't even have the answer. He said, I don't know. He didn't have the answer to a question that he needed to understand. And the question I asked him, I said, what's the moat you built around this business? Or actually, I didn't say it like that. I said, I think I just asked it like very plainly, like, what's the moat here? And nobody in the room understood. But a moat is basically a moat in a business. Think of it just like what a real moat is. You have a castle and you have like it's surrounded by water. And in order to reach your castle, you have to cross this water. And in the cartoons, they had alligators or sharks in the water, and they dropped the bridge down. So that's a moat, right? Like it protects your citadel, your fort, your castle, whatever it is, right? That's what a moat is. Same thing for business. You know, it's like, what's the moat you create to protect your intellectual property so nobody can steal it, right? So I was getting to the point where, like, I'm talking to founders and they want to hire me, but I'm like, they knew they had to hire me because I knew too much. But it got to the point where they couldn't afford to pay me. And that's when it's like, yo, I priced myself out of corporate America, and it just didn't make sense to go to work anymore. So I had to struggle and figure out how to do this thing on my own. And then the Joe Rogan shit happened. And that was an amazing experience that changed my life. But again, so why am I saying all this? Because humans have to, just like my brain was cracked doing that chess puzzle, you have to crack your brain. You have to read material that is like one level above your intellectual capacity. You know, you have some people that run around and say, oh, I read 100 books last year. If you read 100 books in a year, then you didn't grow. You didn't grow. You should not be able to sit down and read books in one sitting. It's just not. I wrote the Patriot Report. Very few people would tell you that they can sit down and read that book in one sitting. It's just too filled with facts. And it's a short read, but it's so like dense with facts that you just can't sit in one reading, mostly because emotionally you're just gonna be like, yo, what the fuck happened to America? So that's my work, the Patriot Report. But so for example, like I'm reading a book now on quantum physics. Like this is a book on quantum physics. Then I'm reading another book on, you know, like this Nathan Rothschild's book, right? They're talking about like concepts around money mechanisms that basically set the foundation for our financial system. That set the foundation for how Wall Street works. So like I could read a paragraph and I got to read the paragraph again because I'm like, what'd he do? He did what? So he took the notes from London. He took them to Amsterdam. He exchanged them for Amsterdam notes. Then he took them to France. Then he swapped them in France for specie. Then he swapped those for another set of notes and then sold them. So he was getting cut off and I'm just like, oh, this dude's a good scammer, right? So like, if what you're reading, you can read really fast, you need to not be reading that. Now, I write books in a manner where it's supposed to be picked up and read because I want people to get the material fast. It's more like guides, right? Like my book on the unbreakable rules of masculinity. It's for young men and men who just want to have better relationships with women. So I wrote it in a way that's easy to digest, easy to understand real quick. But it's not brain cracking material. I don't write brain cracking material. My new book might crack some people's brains, but for like the real intelligentsia, it'll just make you think about some things. It'll challenge your thoughts, and you might have a few cracks here or there, right? But it's more or less a philosophical take. My new book is more a philosophical take, and I think that most people who are intelligent will find their beliefs challenged, and if they accept my thoughts, then their brains will crack, right? And I think that for the majority of the people that read my book, their brains are going to crack. But like I said, I'm reading a book on quantum physics. I haven't studied physics since high school, and I did pretty well in physics actually in high school until I didn't. It's like that last semester of senior year. Anyway, I never should have found out girls like me. So anyway, yeah, so you gotta like read material. So if you're reading 100 books in a year, like you haven't challenged yourself to anything. So who are we as human beings who go in, day out, and don't challenge our brains? What are we doing? We taking the low hanging fruit and yapping all day about Will Smith smacking somebody? Like, you know how small brain that is? Like, I gave y'all 2 good tweets on that matter last night and kept it moving, right? I was like, let me get my little grift on this topic, and then that's it. I'm not about to sit here all day, spending all day talking about this and investing in this, and everybody's super chat just came in. Let me see what's here. Saxon Ross, thank you. He said intelligence seems to come from knowledge, cleverness, and wisdom. I'm actually going to explain what intelligence is in a second. You clearly have all 3 and you juggle them well. Also, talking about the reality surrounding the issue instead of the drama. Wisest take I've heard yet. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do tonight. I wanted to talk about the reality surrounding the drama because that's more important than the actual drama. The drama is insignificant, but everybody's reaction to it is the big problem. It's the thing we really need to look at, right? So you got this small event that creates this explosive reaction from everyone. But this event is so insignificant that it creates significant reactions. Insignificant event creates significant reactions. And these reactions are insignificant intrinsically, but from a study, they are paramount. This is important to understand why people feel it is so important to talk about Will Smith smacking Chris Rock and to spend all day talking about this subject is very important because this is a absolute problem. This is a problem. This is exactly what's wrong with Americans. Entertainment news runs our life. I know. I used to profit off of it. It runs our life and it's sickening. Nobody should be that invested. Jabari Judah, thank you. He said, just got off work paying my tuition. Hopefully everyone's third eye is open for the ritual. Yes, I hope your third eye is open for the ritual. So he says, intelligence comes from knowledge, cleverness, and wisdom. I won't dispute that. I think that's a great way to explain it. I view, to me, intelligence equals consciousness, or at least it's born from consciousness, right? So, I'm trying to think if I should just open up. No, I'm not going to do it. I'll do this straight off the top of the dome. But I wrote an article about this on menoforder.com. Go to Mindset. You'll see all of my Mindset posts there. And yeah, so you can check those out later if you want to do some more expansive reading. All right. So intelligence equals consciousness. Why does intelligence equal consciousness? Well, what is it that people fear about AI? Right. So today we have something called artificial intelligence, right? AI. And right now, people find it pretty harmless. Nobody's really scared of it. We use it every day. Algorithms are being used on it. I'm actually part of a company that we deal in camera AI analytics. So I'm very familiar with AI, but what is it about artificial intelligence that everybody is afraid of? I'll give the chat some time. I'll count to 10, and then you guys can, try to surmise what is it about artificial intelligence that people are afraid of. Well, I'll tell you, and people always say this. Are you ready? Good. Hopefully I've given people enough time to think about this and then place their thoughts in the chat. The thing that makes AI fearful to people is the moment that AI becomes self-aware. Hotep, ya tú sabes. He got it correct. It's not that it can outsmart us, because it can outsmart us now. People are afraid of the moment it becomes self-aware. When it knows of itself. Consciousness is intelligence. Self-consciousness is intelligence. For example, there's this very cliche quote that says, you don't know what you don't know, right? So once you run across some piece of information, there's two types of people in this world. When an individual is confronted with information that they don't understand, you have two types of people. One type of person is a person who's going to take a moment to look it up to understand it. And you have type of people who won't. For example, some people read books, they come across words they don't understand, they don't stop and look them up, they keep reading. Then you have some people who actually stop, look up those words, write them down, etc., etc. When I come across a word in a book that I don't understand, not only do I look it up, I write it down, I put it in an app in my book, in my phone, and I put the definition in, and then I review these words every so often. I try to do it every morning, but it's just not a part of my daily routine yet. I usually just hop up and do whatever comes to my mind first thing in the morning. I just kind of like operate intuitively. So intelligence is based upon consciousness, right? So basically what happens is this. You come across a piece of information and your ego goes, I don't know what this is. Or your intellectual mind will say, the conscious mind will say, I don't know what this is. Then you have the decision to either study it or not study it. And the vast majority of people are going to not study it. And that is the problem. You see, consciousness leads to intelligence. Then there's also the part of like conquering the ego, because the ego will say, well, I feel insecure that I don't know this, so I'm just going to avoid this whole situation completely. And I should feel better about myself because I've just avoided this whole entire situation. Instead of saying, no, I'm a dumbass. I don't know what the hell this piece of information came across my desk is, and I'm going to spend some time to learn this. Admitting you don't know shit is a superpower, right? So I'm in the cryptocurrency space, right? And I believe I don't know shit about cryptocurrency. However, if you compare me to somebody who's arguing about Chris Rock and Will Smith all day, I know of a hell of a lot more than them, but compared to another cryptocurrency person, I don't know anything. So you have some people who make fun of people who buy online courses. You have some people who make fun of people who buy my books. You have some people who like I think today I was running my sale. I lost 200 followers because people were like, why is this guy selling a book? He must be a charlatan. And it's just like, wait, like we're not allowed to sell information. It's just like really weird. But Vin Armani had the Bitcoin Mystery School. I attended that class. It was 3 days in a row. I attended every single class from beginning to end. Showed up on time. Like I pride myself in learning from experts. If there's somebody teaching, I want in. If it's something I'm interested in, I want in. I need to learn. I need to learn from you. What do you know? You know cryptocurrency? You know this Bitcoin stuff? Good, teach me. You think everybody who has taught me in the past is wrong? Good, teach me. I want to learn. So I read. There's this great book written by a socialist. His name is Howard Zinn. And here, let me pull that book up. I want you guys to know about this book. A People's History of the United States of America, I believe it's called. Yes, A People's History of the United States. You can get a free copy. I just found a free copy online. It's like right here, like on the internet. And I read this book, and I shared this with people online, right? I said, yo, I read this really awesome book called A People's History of the United States by this guy Howard Zinn. And people are like, oh, he's a socialist. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Right? Like, Orwell was a socialist. I've read Marx. I still got more Marx to read. And it's just like, for example, I remember I was back in my black nationalist days. I was reading some white supremacy, I guess you can call it, type books. And this black person asking, yo, why are you reading that stuff? And I'm like, I want to understand my enemy. And they were like, they didn't get it at first. So I said, okay, let me ask you this. When a football team plays another team, don't they pull up tape from their previous game and study the plays and see how they move and operate? Don't you study your enemy? Yeah. Okay. I'm studying my enemy. So when I sit up here and I study and I read Rousseau, right? Or I read Marx, or I read Zinn, or I read Orwell, I'm reading socialist works. I read the Rothbards too, right? But I read it all. Like, I want to know it all. I want to know all their angles. And then when I see the angles, I know how to refute them. So I should know all the socialist material better than your best socialist. So when I end up in a debate with them, I'm crushing them with their material and my material. This is what it's about, being intellect. When I tell people, I say, yo, I read this book, People's History of Howard Zinn, they dismiss him because they go, he's a socialist. And I'm like, well, did the Ludlow massacre actually happen? Well, yeah, it did. Well, it's in his book. He talks about it. Just because the dude's a socialist doesn't mean the shit he said in his book is wrong. And that's where people get messed up. And see, so this goes back to my point before about organization and the conspirators that run this country and what they do to organization. They can hide information from you by labeling it with something that they know you don't like. If they want people to not hear from America's first line doctors, they won't call them America's first line doctors. They'll say those are Trump's doctors. So the people won't listen to them. They go, it's Trump doctors. They must be racist. They're conspiracy theorists. They're Alex Jones enthusiasts. Let's not listen to them. So the conspirators understand the power of labels. And if you haven't listened to my lecture, I did a lecture on labels last week. So they understand the power of labels. So they'll label something that they know a particular cohort does not like. Right? I did a poll before and I said, would you read communist works, something. And I said the options were like, yes, I would. No, communism is bad. And maybe because I'm interested or something like that. And most people said, I will not read any communist work because communism is bad. And I'm like, you are missing out on a lot of great material by not reading communist work. The work that Karl Marx was commissioned to write, I think by the Knights of the Golden Circle, because he didn't write that shit, I believe. But the work is actually stellar material. The problem is in the application of solutions. Socialists just tend to be all the way off, and it's because they're totalitarian tyrants. It just is what it is. And they just want power. They want centralization of power, and they're just thieves, right? But the way that they assess problems is super on point. The way Marx breaks down the middle class is so fucking true. He like nails the middle class. Middle class people are terrible, yo. These are the same people that won't read communist works because it's written by a communist. The same people that won't read a piece of work because it's written by a socialist. These people are pseudo intellectuals. So coming back to the gentleman's question, What is intelligence? Intelligence is consciousness. You first have to be conscious of your own biases, right? Because you might read something and either have an issue with confirmation bias, or your ego will take a blow because you're reading information that goes against what you've been commonly thought. Shout out to Alex. Alex does the clips for Hotep's Been Told You, or the Hotep's Been Told You clips channel. And he put me across this Indian cat that had, I think his name was Gupta or something like that. I forget his name. So, when Alex was telling me about the guy, I'm like, nah, it doesn't even sound like my cup of tea. I think I kind of disagree with this guy's takes. And so I sat down and actually listened to him because Alex said it was a good listen. So I sat down and I listened to the interview with Naval. And I still had the same take after I listened to Alex. However, my brain cracked because, well, I had to question I had to challenge my own bias and say, is what this guy is saying true or not? He was talking about like prescriptions and how he doesn't give people prescriptions to problems. And I'm just like, I do. And I'm really good at it. And it works. And I think there's times in our lives where people need prescriptions and where people don't. But I think it depends on the individual and the types of problems they're going through. So I kind of agree with him and I kind of don't. But again, I would need to have a conversation with him to see if I fully disagree with him. But I can't just say I fully disagree with him because that would be disingenuous, and it would be egoic as well because I haven't fully probed his thoughts. I'm just going off of a 1 hour interview and Naval is asking him questions that I just wouldn't ask. So again, intelligence is consciousness, knowing what you don't know or having the desire to know what you don't know, and then going out and seeking to know it. Consciousness is also intuitive, right? So like the Joe Rogan experience in my opportunity to go on that show, it kind of sparked because my intuition told me to tag him because somebody a few weeks later earlier said I should go on the show. So I tagged him and he ended up tagging me and ended up on the show, blah, 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 blah. But that's not actually how I got on the show. But my intuition kind of sparked it all, right? I think somebody saw it. One of his friends saw it and said, yo, you should have this dude on. But my intuition sparked that, right? So again, intuition is an aspect of consciousness. It's actually cosmic consciousness, the intermediary between cosmic consciousness and your physical consciousness or your brain consciousness or your mind consciousness. And that intuition is a part of consciousness and can lead you to intellectual material. For example, my intuition creates a spark of inspirational thought that says I should ask my followers what's the best book on monetary theory written by Louis von Mises. And then they gave me a list of books and I'm able to crowdsource and go right to the books that are probably most important. And again, coming back to trust and trusting people and trusting the consensus of people to know that this is the book I should be reading, or this is where I should start on reading and seeing, well, is this the same book I read? And then when I looked, I'm like, all right, well, one of the books they mentioned I read, but these other ones I have not read and I should probably get into them at some point. All right. But the flash of intuition, you ever have an idea, it just pops in your head and it's just like, yo, where'd that come from? That comes from intuition. It's part of cosmic consciousness, or the intermediary, the reaction of your intuitive mind from inspiration from the cosmic consciousness. Some people might call him God. TJP said mass distribution of some ideas can break stuff without upside. Cultural appropriation, morally interesting but stupid, follows in the hands of normies. Yeah, I would agree with that. There are a lot of things and machinations created by people in this world that don't deserve much thought or conversation. And really it comes down to prioritization as to, what would you rather be talking about? I guess you can use the idea of opportunity cost and say, I should be talking or thinking about this instead of that. And so, yeah, cultural appropriation for the black community is not something that we should actually be concerned with. There's much more pressing matters. So I would probably back burner a conversation like cultural appropriation. So in finality, right? In finality on this conversation, because I'm losing my voice now and I don't have any water or tea. In finality, we teach the influencers what to feed us. Now, there is a reverse relationship that's happening there. Not only are we teaching the influencers what to feed us, we are teaching the influencers what they should feed themselves. And that's how you influence trickle up. This is like intellectual trickle up theory. You tell people, the influencers, by the material or the content you engage with, what they should study. If they happen to run across, let's say they did a video on inflation, right? And an inflation video got more views than any other video they did. They go, well, maybe I need to do more economic type material. So what are they going to do? They might have to pick up a soul book. They might have to pick up some Rothbard. They're going to have to increase their intellectual capacity in this field of knowledge. They're going to have to do some real research. But if you say to them, because with your engagement, if you communicate with them via engagement and you flood their likes and their views on videos about Chris Rock getting smacked by Will Smith, you're dumbing down your intelligentsia. You're dumbing down the influencer class. You're making them stupider, and because it's a symbiotic relationship, they're making you stupider. That's why I don't click on content on the internet that's not intellectual. I get DMs on Instagram all day long, right? People send me stories on shit all day long. And I got to tell you right now, the majority of them don't get clicked on. They don't get clicked on. They just don't get clicked on. I look at the thing and I go, it doesn't even fucking matter. Somebody sent me a video. They emailed me recently a video about Hunter Biden's connections to Ukraine, right? Now, it's a great topic to grift off of. That's what everybody's talking about. But my brain goes, it's not fucking important. Again, in the grand scheme of things, when we zoom out, whatever Hunter Biden and them do in Ukraine, they've done already. That's in the past. What's going to help me right now? What's going to help my family right now? Surely it's not the Hunter Biden situation. Surely it is understanding modern monetary theory. Surely it's researching and writing my next book. Surely it's researching the Rothschild family, which is way more important because they built this new financial system that Hunter Biden is even able to grift off of. Surely it's more important for me to study quantum physics. Surely it's more important for me to understand Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, so I'm studying that. Surely it's more important for me to study Michael Malice's work. Surely it's more important for me to study Thomas Sowell and Walter E. Williams' work. So I didn't click on it. I'm thankful that people send me stuff because it keeps me up to date. And I love that people send me stuff. Like, please keep sending me stuff. Wasted brain power. Like, I just don't want to spend my time on that. We know it existed. If somebody doesn't want to believe that Hunter Biden has some dealings going on in Ukraine, there's nothing we can do to help that individual. When they are ready to take the red pill, they will take the red pill. They will ask questions honestly. Remember, in the Matrix, nobody force-fed anybody the red pill. It was voluntary. Morpheus gave Neo a choice. He said red pill or blue pill. You either take the red pill, find out the real deal, or you take the blue pill and go back to your little insignificant life. But you had a choice. So I'm not here to force feed anybody with the red pill. If you don't know about what Hunter Biden did in Ukraine, well, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Right? So there are people who study that and break that whole thing down. And I think they should, because when people are ready for that red pill, that information needs to be there. It needs to be there. Somebody needs to study that that whole Hunter Biden situation and break that down for the people that might need a red pill to awaken and see what's really going on with the people that run this country. However, for Hotep Jesus, it's not important. Not for me, it's not. I'm already took the red pill. I already know about Rex 84. Which one is it? Rex 84? I already know about all these things. CERN and Project Bluebeam. I'm way past that. Bohemian Grove, when that was years ago. Now we are getting back to a point where it's about building the individual and understanding how to operate in our society today at maximum capacity to function at the highest level. And this requires understanding our life. This is why I'm reading books on quantum physics, because I want to understand the universe. I don't know, I'm just a geek like that. I want to understand about quasars and shit like that and black holes. I don't know, it just seems fun. I don't know. You just become smarter, right? And then later on, you can kind of like relate this stuff to real life. But I want to understand, like, I have this huge fascination with our monetary system. So going back to what the dude asked before, right? And this is my last point. I'm gonna get out of here. The dude asked, should somebody understand philosophy or economics? Which one's more important, right? Wu-Tang taught us cash rules everything around me. So personally, I find the subject matter of money fascinating because I had two different thoughts I wanted to express. So let me just divert into the new one that popped in my head. And if I remember the old one, I'll talk about it. Money is the creation of the ego. Money exists because man is selfish. Money isn't the root of all evil. Money exists because of evil. The ego requires an intermediary for two tribes to exchange resources, to exchange services. So it is a necessary tool because we have an ego. If we didn't have an ego, people would just swap goods and not need any reciprocity. Reciprocity would just happen. It would just happen. Everybody would just be happy. But because we have an ego, there is a need for money. So money is very real, and our lives revolve around economics. Again, how does one tribe exchange scarce goods and resources with another? They do this with money. So money is very important. So I spend an extreme amount of time studying our monetary system, and it's very freaking complicated, especially for somebody who I believe I'm in my freshman year of studies. You know, the kid who works at a hedge fund probably runs circles around me with some of the jargon that they be using. When it comes to venture capital, I'm a freshman when it comes to some of this talk. So I'm studying these things. I don't know all these terms, but I'm studying them, right? And for me, I feel like I'm playing catch up, which is why I have this regret that I haven't started down this path sooner. You know what I mean? So that's what I study. That's what I did a study on. I wrote the Patriot Report. It was a study on the history of money. And again, intelligence and consciousness. My consciousness knew what was really happening behind the scenes, and I needed the intelligence gathered and put into a book form for people to digest. So I went and gathered the intelligence, the facts and the data around, because I knew the United States was a communist nation from the very beginning. I didn't need anybody to tell me that it was. I knew it. I could just look at where we are now, see how things are operating. I studied a whole bunch of socialist and communist books, and I was like, oh, okay, so the United States is a communist nation. Cool, that makes sense. All right. But how, when, where, dates, central banking, So I went and I tracked it all the way back to the beginning of the United States, and that's how I wrote the Patriot Report, exposing the conspiracy of money and war. So I studied that. I put it in the book form. And there's a reason why I do this. Like, even my book, I had a sale on today, Dominate Twitter. I originally did the original purpose for writing the book was because I was on Twitter with all these rules swirling around my head, and I was like, I gotta get them out. The second reason was I wanted to dominate job interviews, and I knew if I walked into a job interview saying I was a marketer and here's my book on marketing and I'm gonna hand this to you as a gift, I was a shoo-in for the job, and I would walk into interviews, be like, yeah, here's a gift bag. Here's some keychains and stuff from when I was a touring artist, and here's my book on marketing. That's yours. You can study it. Whether I get the job or not is on you, but I think that book will help you out a lot within this corporation. And then they read the book, and they usually call me back like, yo, you want the job? Yo, you seem to know what you're doing. Yeah, I'll take the job, you know? Come to find out, because of that book, I didn't need a job anymore because I just sold so many copies. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't need a job because I sold so many copies of the book because the book is so good. Like, this is my real life experience. But why? What is the third rung to why writing is so important for all individuals? Like, everyone should be an author. Why? It comes back to what Francis Bacon said. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So yeah, you read, yeah, you conference with others, but the thing that's going to make you write and exact is actually writing. So I don't really digest the material until I actually start writing it down, and then it's like a part of my DNA. Whalem 03 said most of us didn't have fat cat daddies to set us up. I grew up comfortable. That is the truth. I grew up very comfortable, and I am extremely lucky. And to be honest with you, if I didn't have the dad I had, you wouldn't have a Hotep Jesus. I wouldn't be Hotep Jesus. I'd just be some ignorant fool, probably on the internet, ranting and raving about Will and Jada, right? But just like you didn't have a fat cat daddy, you didn't have that choice in the matter. I didn't have a choice in the matter that I had a fat cat daddy. That's the life I was born. That's the gift God gave me. God gave me dope parents. I didn't have a choice in that matter. Well, spiritually, many people believe that the child does choose their parents when it comes from the ether. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I didn't choose my parents. Okay? Like, physical me didn't choose my parents. It's what I got dealt with. It's the hand I got dealt. So, you know, if you feel bad that I have good parents, I'm sorry. I wish the best for you, but I believe because of the internet, you can turn that around and you can do better. But I do believe without my parents, I would not be here. TJP81, thank you. He said, check out the Wikipedia page for the book called Homo Ludens, Man the Player by Johann Huizinga. The summary might be enough to tempt your interest. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Somebody asked me, what does Hotep Jesus mean? I don't know what it means. It's a moniker that was given to me. I'll tell you the story real fast and I'm gonna get out of here. I had a spiritual awakening. This is when I got rid of my entertainment blog and I became vegan and changed my clothes. I became like a straight up like yogi weirdo, right? Where I was just all about like and I just had this like spiritual awakening, right? And I was just out there, right? I was just completely like out there. And I was tweeting from a very high place, very spiritual tweets. You know, I was tweeting straight from like my higher consciousness. And then one day somebody said to me, what do you think you are? Some sort of Hotep Jesus? And when I looked at it on my phone, I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So like I have this thing with symmetry. So like HOTEP JESUS. the name was symmetrical, 5 letters and 5 letters, right? So I immediately saw the symmetry in it, and it looked beautiful just from the symmetry. I'm a Libra, so I like things being balanced. And then there's this like Hotep and Jesus, and I'm like, people aren't going to like the Jesus part. And that's exactly why I'm going to call myself Hotep Jesus, because I'm a marketer, and part of being a marketer is like drawing attention, and sometimes controversy can be a part of that, and making people uncomfortable is something I like doing. So I called myself Hotep Jesus, and then thanks to whoever that was, I just took it on as a name, and now I'm Hotep Jesus. But it doesn't have a meaning. I think it's just, if it had a meaning, I don't know, just me, man. My real name is Brian Sharp, BryanSharpe. Add .co to take you to my website, get on my newsletter, subscribe to my newsletter. I write a weekly newsletter, a daily newsletter. Get in tune with my work there. And of course, Men of Order. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I am Hotep Jesus, and
Hotep.
love y'all. Hotep and Bill.